briefly mention this. I have to watch out. Old Mr. Sensitive here gets his feels on whenever I mention the Brock Purdy contract. So there's a story he's going to get. Niners offered him $45 million. That's about what he's worth. I mean, it's amazing to me, though. I mean, like, Sam Darnold has no market. Everybody's like 33 for Darnold, but give Jamar Chase $40 million. He's a receiver. What are we doing here? But Brock Purdy, yesterday I said, my problem paying a quarterback top of the market is you can't struggle against the good teams. And you can't have to have a completely full and healthy roster for you to win games. They won 6 games last year. What do you want me to say about Brock Purdy? They call those KPIs in business, and his KPIs aren't very good. The key indicators aren't very good. But just for a comp on this, because you could make the argument. Well, I mean, what quarterback's good against playoff teams? So Purdy 1-6 last year against playoff teams.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Lamar Jackson, the last 2 years, he gets nothing but hate against playoff teams. Dude has a 115 passer rating, 38 TDs, 8 picks, and for the record, the playoff teams, I would argue, the last 2 years in the AFC are much better than the playoff teams Brock Purdy faces in the NFC. So I'll pay Lamar Jackson whatever the market dictates, and Burrow, and Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. Brock Purdy, it is circumstantial. His success has been circumstantial, situational, bad team, often at home, everybody's healthy, weather's ideal. If it gets overcast and drizzly, and I think about you'll be less of a quarterback, I said this about Tua. When Tua's playing, my question is, what month is it and what's the weather? I cannot pay a top of the market if I'm asking about weather. I'm not asking about weather with Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. So it's just, you know, next time you bang on Lamar Jackson.
Okay. Using Lamar Jackson as the reference point may be one of the most insane things ever. Most people think that Lamar Jackson is one of the talented, most gifted physical quarterbacks to ever play the game. Colin has essentially said that. I don't know exactly how he phrased it, but it was either the most talented or physically, whatever word, whatever phrasing he used. Okay? So, like, that's insane. Also, then, if we want to keep doing that thing, like, it's so funny how when we want to make our own arguments, because before, when Colin was trying to doubt Lamar, he kind of said, he's not good against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Chiefs, and in the playoffs or whatever. Look at his record, like the graphic that they kept sharing. It was something that Nick Wright kept sharing as well. And it was like, see, not good, this, that, and the third. And you can look at his playoff stats and whatnot. So it's kind of like, well, that's a little crazy. And you want to use Brock Purdy's playoff record, or record against playoff teams last season. Weird how you only wanted to use last season. That's weird. Why do you only want to use last season as a reference point? I'd love to know. Why? Is it because it's a little bit different when you use the other years that he's been in the playoffs? Why aren't we using oh my God, why are we just using 1 year for Brock Purdy, multiple years for Lamar, and only using Lamar's last 2 years and not the years before? I don't even understand. Lamar Jackson is, all-pro, unanimous MVP, could have been a 3-time MVP. Yes, guys, and I think most 49ers fans believe this, Brock Purdy's not on the level of, if you had to choose between Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy, you're gonna choose Patrick Mahomes. Okay? Yes, I'm sure there are some really, really passionate Brock Purdy fans who want to make the argument that Purdy's better than, Josh Allen or something. They're wrong, but that is not the vast majority. I'm very confident. Were people getting really, really high on Purdy a couple years ago when his stock was really rising and he was this unknown guy? Sure. But then people kind of reached a little bit more of an understanding of who Purdy is. But to keep kind of talking through that lens, it's kind of absurd. And again, guys, Oh my gosh. Let's do this. Let's be for real here. Brock Purdy versus the Minnesota Vikings, who at that time were really hot and their defense was causing a lot of problems. Brock Purdy played pretty darn good. 28 for 36, 319 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Sam Darnold, who did a lot less, was able to come away with that win because the defense played better. You know, pretty straightforward. Nothing too crazy in that game. Okay, against the Rams, absolutely not his fault either. Burrow was 22 for 30, 292 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That's pretty good. Is that when their field goal kicker? I forget if it was the first game against the Rams or their second game when their kicker was gone, got injured, whatever it is. And again, this was obviously not no Christian McCaffrey, Juwan Jennings coming out of nowhere, Brandon Ayuk hardly who we knew him to be. I mean, he's throwing to no one here. I mean, was Kittle playing that game again? I don't remember exactly, but let's not pretend like he was having this stacked roster there. So again, you're gonna hold his feet to the fire for that game. Not sure why. I mean, Stafford did significantly less. He comes away with the win. I guess that means he's the hero. Versus the Chiefs, absolutely wildly ugly game for both Mahomes. I think Mahomes had like a 55 passer. I mean, like that was one of the weirdest, most bizarre games that I saw probably all last year. So just really kind of a disaster, quite frankly. So I don't understand. And then by this point, as the season goes on, now you're talking about it against the Bills in an absolute blizzard. There's a snowstorm. Christian McCaffrey injures himself. I mean, like this was clearly a big running type game, and Christian McCaffrey goes down dramatic fashion. And you know what? Purdy just might not be great in snowstorms. I'm totally okay with that. Not every quarterback is going to be able to be a beast in bad weather, okay? You talk about the bad weather, Matthew Stafford against the 49ers almost threw like 3 or 4 interceptions in the first half alone. And that was the game when the 49ers were like, hey, let's feed the ball to Debo. And Debo's like, I don't want to catch the ball today. Which would have absolutely changed the game. They absolutely could have won that game if Debo just decided to say, you know what, I'm going to actually catch the ball today. So again, you got to be careful how we want to, do these games. I mean, this team was so badly injured, in and out of the lineup. It was a disaster. And it's just, some of the scores that they're giving up. I mean, the 49ers defense was awful. 29th in the league. 29th. So now you're putting tremendous pressure on Purdy and this offense with their lack of weapons, with all the injuries, all the issues, with a bad defense, and you're expecting him to be able to come away with wins and play great. When that's absurd, because Patrick Mahomes, who also struggled with weapons, did not play good, had similar stats and similar experiences to Brock Purdy. The difference was that his defense was elite, so they asked Patrick Mahomes to do significantly less. And again, yes, Patrick Mahomes is better than Brock Purdy. Again, I'm glad we figured that out. I really am. I'm really glad we figured that out. I know that's so jarring for 49ers fans. They're just stunned by that hot take. So again, to just kind of act like I just don't even get the comparison of bringing up like a Lamar Jackson and wanting to use these numbers as a frame of reference, especially when, a game like against the Chiefs, which was objectively an awful game, and the snowstorm against the Bills, that is going to pull this down drastically. Didn't he have like 3 interceptions alone in that game? Let me see. Yep, 3 interceptions, which is clearly an outlier and a bizarre game, right? That's clearly not his norm. That was just a bizarre game. It's an outlier. It's a legitimate statistical outlier, not the norm, which then makes these numbers so much worse. Because if we just kind of have him be more average in that moment, he would have a 9 to like 5 ratio, it'd be a little bit different. and his completion percentage would go up a little bit, his passer rating would go, like all of the numbers would increase. And that's what you do when you're actually, that's why even the term outlier exists from a statistical standpoint. Because a lot of times when you're looking at data, if you're medical data, financial, whatever it is, you run multiple analyses with and without the outliers to kind of be like, okay, when we remove some of these extreme scenarios, do we see an actual more accurate, a more accurate portrayal of what we're seeing? And that's why you can't just look at the bottom line stats. There's just so many other factors. So again, using a stats like this, kind of absurd, as well as just saying, well, let's just do the 2024 years. Who cares about whatever happened in the years past? And let's look at the last 2 years for Lamar Jackson, even though he's been playing for obviously a lot longer than that. Like that doesn't make doesn't make any sense. That really doesn't. That really makes so little sense. I don't get the straw man arguments that keep being comprised against Brock Purdy. I really don't. And again, not everything is created equal, because you'll have, because I'll rail on like a Dak Prescott for not doing good against, playoff teams or teams with a winning record or whatnot. And it'll be because like the team will be the same. You'll have the same weapons. Like everything will be the same, but then you play fundamentally different, Dak Prescott. Like you clearly are playing worse. You're making bad throws, bad decisions, whatever it may be. When you're watching Brock Purdy in these moments, you're just like, collectively, this team is kind of a mess. The defense is, like whatever the situation is. And again, expecting him to be able to find ways to win within the first few years of his career with weapons that are going in and out and in and out, right? They had the most like Pro Bowl injuries. I forget exactly what the official stat was, but it was like the most injuries, I think, of all time, in terms of like how many games were missed by, Pro Bowlers on the roster. Again, I forget exactly what it was, but like it was an absolute mess. And Shanahan was not, on his A game in this regard either. I don't think Shanahan deals with injuries from an offensive coaching perspective very well. I don't think he really knows what to do in a lot of situations when he doesn't have a Christian McCaffrey. Like he's still evolving, and I love Shanahan, absolutely love Shanahan, but he needs to learn and grow and evolve as a head coach because he's had these problems before. So, this was a team problem, not a Brock Purdy problem. And yes, if you had a Lamar Jackson, a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, would you maybe been able to find a way to win a few more games if you had them? Yes, because again, they're better quarterbacks. Again, glad we figured that out. They're better quarterbacks. But like I always say, that the standard can't just be like you're either Mahomes and Josh Allen or you're not, right? Mahomes was going to be in the GOAT conversation if he didn't get rocked by the Eagles. People were saying that he is the GOAT if he beats the Eagles. And we're going to use like him as a frame of reference. Josh Allen, whose records are just go to his Wikipedia page. It's record after record after record after record after record. Lamar Jackson, MVP, unanimous MVP, all pro. Like, you know what I mean? Like all the dude needs to win is a Super Bowl or two and he would be in the GOAT conversation. And like those are the frames like that's the reference point that we're going to use. Why? How does that make sense? Again, if we were trying to figure out, is Brock Purdy the GOAT? If we were trying to, if there was real discussions about Brock Purdy being the absolute bona fide leader and source of this team, and he's reportedly asking for $65 million, $70 million a year, then yes, let's have that conversation. Totally understand. Let's have that conversation. If they were able to beat the Chiefs, a couple years ago, and people were kind of saying, hey, if Brock Purdy wins another Super Bowl, like that'll be 2. And, Mahomes at this point would have only had, I guess, 2, right? If we're doing this revisionist history, and people will say, yeah, like, is he better than Mahomes? And then, like, yeah, then let's dig into these numbers. Let's really dig in and say, okay, that's not the story. That's not the situation. So I don't understand. I don't understand why we always have to kind of cook the books here. I mean, hey, technically versus playoff teams, his completion percentage increases. You know, he's actually better. He's more efficient. You know, blame the defense. You know, oh gosh. I mean, one of the playoff games he played against was against the Lions, when essentially the 49ers team was done. Everybody was done. You had a player that was like, I'm not even going back onto the field. You know, everybody was dejected, and you're like, yeah, let it rip. You know, whatever. Like, it's just, I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Brock Purdy and the 49ers? Does he give them the best chance to win? I don't understand the question, because if he doesn't, then who are you going to get? Russell Wilson? Does Russell Wilson give them a better chance? Kirk Cousins at this point? Aaron Rodgers? You know, let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.